Welcome to enLIGHTen. I am Lisa Varga, and I am so excited for you guys to be a part of this show. This is very different for me and very different for all of you and very different for everyone at home watching as well. But I am really excited. I want to start off by saying we have Jim Schellinger here. He is the Secretary of Commerce for the state of Indiana, and we are going to be talking about the current pandemic and the state that we are in the economy, and he's going to give us some tips and pointers and advice and information. It's going to be amazing. You guys are going to learn a lot, and we have a great panel as well that we're going to have a discussion with. But I wanted to start off by saying thank you to a few people. First of all, thank you to the South Bend Civic Theater for allowing us to be here in their beautiful home. If you guys don't know about the South Bend Civic Theater, go to sbct.org, and you can find out all the shows they have coming up and also donate to them. They have done a tremendous amount of work for us here, and we are grateful, so check out South Bend Civic Theater. Also, I would like to thank our sponsors. We've got Parkwood Auto Spa, we have got Burton's Laundry and Dry Cleaning, we have got Friedman and Associates, CJ's Pub, we've got Heroes Camp, and we couldn't have done this without you guys, so thank you so much. Also, that catchy song in the beginning, I fell in love with it, and the artist is Adrenalize, and it's featuring Michael Joe, and the song is called Wide Awake, which is what we are all becoming, is wide awake to the economy, wide awake to the current situation in the world, and everything we have going on and all of the challenges we have going on. So thank you. For those of you viewing at home, we have an audience here that I see are all safely distanced, wearing masks, and they are a part of this. So we have a live studio audience, so to say. Without further ado, I am going to have Jim Schellinger join me, the Secretary of Commerce for the state of Indiana. Come on out, Jim, and we're going to get to our discussion here.
Okay.
I would shake your hand or, give you a hug, but I can't. So we are safely distanced. And again, like I said, this is the new normal. So you could probably tell us a lot about that. But first of all, I want to get into, you are from here in South Bend, Indiana.
I am.
So tell us a little bit about that.
I never knew what this building was.
You didn't? Wow.
Not a clue. I figured it was something because of the dome, but
yeah, no, it's
closest we got was the Golden Arches across the street.
That's a different dome.
Yeah, that was. I had the first Egg McMuffin at that restaurant in 1974. I just want to go on record on that.
Really? So going on record. What is that restaurant? What was it?
Well, it's McDonald's.
Oh, that restaurant.
It was a different one.
That one.
So it's different today.
A little bit different, yeah.
You couldn't sit in them when we were kids. There's a blue station. No, I grew up here. I've been a resident of Indiana for 60 years, and I'm 60. So I've never left. I spent the first 24 years here. Went to St. Joe Holy Cross Grade School, St. Joseph High School, and then went to Butler for a year, played a little football. And then I came back to Notre Dame because I wanted to be an architect. So I did that. I had to pick up a couple foreign language classes and 2 sciences, so I went to Holy Cross to do that. So I'm the Rudy of architecture.
Well, the Rudy of architecture, I love that.
And then I went to Notre Dame, and I never really lived much on campus. I worked a full-time job at the time, and then I graduated in 1984. So
wow.
Growing up here, sometimes people say, "You're from Notre Dame." I say, "Well, I'm actually from South Bend." I went to Notre Dame, but that's not where I grew up here. And I grew up down Keller Park, the Hollow, in a little house. So my brother's right there.
Oh, his brother's in the audience, for those of you watching at home. You have some other family members here, I think, too, right?
My nephew, Kevin.
Yeah,
he's here, I guess. I don't know if anybody else is. But Bobby, he was special. He was the oldest son. So we lived in this little house on Beale Street, 941 Beale Street. And our front bedroom was 12 by 12, and we had 5 boys sleeping in that bedroom. And
you're kidding.
No bunk beds.
So what, laid sleeping bags out on the floor?
No,
and
2 double beds and a single bed. He got the single bed.
Wow.
He couldn't get up in the morning, that's why. He was really a hard wake-up guy. And just had a card table with our clothes on it, and just everybody sort of shared. We went to get Holy Cross, so you wore light blue shirts and blue ties and blue pants, and you just sort of grew into what your brothers wore, and it was a great life, Lisa. It was interesting, my wife, when Bernie Sanders announced his campaign for president, the last one, he was out in Brooklyn, and he said, "I know where our roots are. I grew up not far from here." my parents were economically challenged, and they had to work every day to make ends meet. And my wife, Laura, looks over at me and says, that sounds a lot like you and your parents. I said, nah, that wasn't my parents. My parents didn't work every day to make ends meet because that was mathematically impossible. They worked every day to keep that from us.
Yeah.
We never knew that we grew up economically challenged, which is a nice way to say poor, but we didn't know that. I mean, for all we knew, we grew up with silver spoons in our mouth. We wanted for nothing. Greatest neighborhood in the world, baby boomer generation neighborhood. Keller Park was our country club, and produced a lot of great people out of that park. And it was a wonderful place to grow up. I would never change it. I wish I could go back in time and go back a few days because it was just amazing back in the day. And it was Camelot for Notre Dame football, of course, in the Air Parsegan years, and it's just a wonderful childhood, and we won it for nothing. And so it was when we got older, we realized, how'd they do it? How'd our parents do what they did with 8 kids? And my mom was the COO of the family and really ruled the household and everything else in the city. And my dad worked at Bendix, and it was a lot of fun.
Wow. So things are very different now than when you grew up and when I grew up. We are living in a completely different world. I look at, my nephew and all the kids growing up today. They didn't have what you and I had. I mean, we would ride our bikes and stay out late and go to our friend's house, and it just is so night and day right now. So I know when you come back here, it must be a treat for you. And I think, didn't you come back recently and kind of
No, I was going to do that tomorrow, but I got to go back tonight. I was going to go walk the neighborhood tomorrow. I haven't been down there in a long, long time. Yeah, they got a lot of different things we didn't have. I mean, you had 10 parents because every parent was empowered to discipline you, and they did. And but they have things today we didn't have. They all have their own bathrooms today. We didn't have our own bathroom. Wow. In fact, we had 10 people sharing one bathroom, and Butch Morgan's here somewhere, isn't he? Butch, this is actually Butch's joke, but I'll steal it from, with 10 people in one bathroom, people would say, which toothbrush did you know what to use? And you just always took the dry one, right? Because it was with 10 people using the same bathroom. And it was nothing for us. It was just, it's what we knew.
Your mom's a trooper, boy.
Yeah,
to raise all boys and girls. How many did you?
5 boys and 3 girls.
Okay, so that's kind of even. Tell me about St. Joe High School, though. I heard you were quite a football player. You've got a good track record there.
Well, I had it pretty easy because I got to come after 2 older brothers. So, sometimes when people expect you to be something, you kind of become that because they expect you to. So, and even though you might not be that, they still treat you like you're that. So, yeah, I played football. I was a linebacker, and I was just telling somebody, I don't remember. Yeah. It was a long time ago. But I was just telling somebody, I was telling Joe, that's Joe Fagan there. He's my deputy. Hey, his 26th birthday today. So I was, happy birthday,
happy
Joe.
Happy birthday. Should we all sing happy birthday? At home, you could sing happy birthday.
You don't want to. So I was just telling Joe, we were talking about how busy 65 was on the way up today. I said, well, 70's big, and our jersey is in the Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame in Richmond, and it's there because the 5 boys, we all wore number 50 at St. Joe for a long time, beginning with Bob and then my youngest brother, Michael. And so afterwards, they put a jersey in. I don't know if any of us cousins were any good. I think it was just because of the tradition of 5 boys playing for the same team. I think for 17 years or something, there was a Schellinger number 50 on the team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Michael had to go 5 years to high school, so don't tell him I said that. I'm teasing, he didn't.
So tell me this journey that you're on where you go and attend the University of Notre Dame as an architect. Let's talk about that a little bit. But then how do you go from architect to the Secretary of Commerce for the state of Indiana?
That's a good question.
Quite a jump.
Well, I always wanted to be an architect since I was a little kid. I never changed. This is always what I wanted to do. I think maybe I was asked this one time when I went to get the job. I only had one job. I worked at CSO Architects the whole time, went there out of college and stayed there for 32 years and went in as a graduate architect and left as CEO and chairman 32 years later. But when I got interviewed there, the principal at the time said, well, what was your inspiration for becoming an architect? Was it Frank Lloyd Wright or Le Corbusier or Louis Sullivan? I said, nah, Mike Brady. And he said, I'm not familiar with him. I said, Mike Brady, the Brady Bunch. I said, when we were kids in the 70s, we watched Brady Bunch. And I said, he looked like he had a great job. He had a beautiful house, beautiful wife, great kids, Alice. You know, he traveled. I thought it was cool, you know.
That is
But then beyond that, I just always was building a fort or doing Lincoln Logs or something and drawing. And it's what I wanted to be. So even though I sort of gave up on that dream and went to Butler for a year because I really didn't think I'd be able to afford to go to school anywhere. I had a scholarship. But then I couldn't do it anymore. I always wanted to be an architect. So I came back and gave that a try. And it was a weird experience for me at Notre Dame. I often tell the story. It wasn't, you know, every day was a challenge. I didn't think I was going to make it through every day. And I worked at night at a tool and die shop out by the airport. And it was day by day. And I sort of had an inferiority complex. Being from South Bend, I didn't feel like I fit in, and, you know, and it was what it was. So my college years were a lot different than a lot of people that go to Notre Dame. It was great, by the way, and I loved every minute of it. It's a lot better today than it was at the time. You know, I wouldn't trade anything. I worked at the tool and die shop, Capital Tool and Die. I was a steel grinder, so I had the worst job in the place. Lowest on a totem pole, but that was nice because nobody wanted my job. And so I was everybody's best friend. Everybody talked to me, and they were fun, and they treated me really, really good. And and I mean, for them, having somebody there that was a student at Notre Dame was a real big deal to them. And it was a great experience. And then I started out in architecture, and I just worked pretty hard. I had a good mentor. Architecture proved to be what I thought it was going to be when I was at Notre Dame. And they teach the classics, so they teach a lot about the Rome program. I wasn't able to go to Rome for third year because it was really expensive. I couldn't afford it, but I stayed back and we did the Rome study program for us. And, you know, I said, this can't be like this in the real world. It's not going to be as theoretical. And it didn't prove to be that way. It was much more how I thought it would be. So I don't know, I just sort of got in it and started getting connected in the community and doing a lot of things in the church and just getting real active. And served on a lot of committees and eventually, I was asked one time by a bunch of young people, how did you form your network? I sort of laughed. I didn't realize, I suppose I do have a network, but I didn't know, they wouldn't call that back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, so I said, I guess. I went to Indianapolis, I didn't know anybody. You know, I didn't know a soul. And today I know most people down there, and it's become a obvious second. This will always be home. There'll never be another home other than South Bend, even though I've lived in Indy longer. This is my home, and always will be. And the memories I have, and a lot of people like Joe have to listen to them all the time when I talk about the old J.C. Penney's and Sears Roebuck and the caramel corn shop and the peanut shop and the State Theater. We used to get our school clothes at Sears, and that was a traumatic time for me when I was in 6th grade because they weren't talking to me. And they were giving clothes to my brothers. And then my mom said, well, we got to go downstairs. So if those of you that are old enough to remember Sears Roebuck, which is now where the baseball field is, I think. Mm-hmm. And they took me downstairs, and I had to go to the workman's department. And I had to get the blue, they had green, blue, and beige. And I got the blue pants because I had to wear Huskies. So anyway, that was you know, my growing years. So my formative years were all here in the city, and it's I'm very proud of that.
So how do you get to be the Secretary of Commerce?
Well, I think, again, it's just being really involved in stuff. Like I said, I was involved heavily in the church, and then I was on the Capital Improvement Board. I was appointed by the Mayor Peterson at the time. And you just gave back is what you do. I mean, and that's what Indianapolis and Indiana and all the metropolitan areas are. You know about it right here in South Bend. It's all about giving back and being a part of the community and being involved. And no state does this better than Indiana, no state. From stem to stern, everywhere I go, I see it. And I'm so proud when I travel around the world. And I've been on 57 international trips in 36 months prior to February. And I've been to 28 countries. And I don't really like to travel, but...
you don't like to?
I was out of the country one time before this assignment. But just getting involved and doing things, and then people count on you for things, and that's a good thing. It's like when a lot of you, if you've ever been, Joel, experienced this, you know, it's so cool when you get to go to a golf outing or you get to go to a dinner or something when you're young, and you do that, and you're kind of like, because you don't realize at that point in your life that fun is anything you don't have to do. And so you go to those stuff, and now, you know, you got to get asked every night. So I got involved, and then I was, you know, I'm a Democrat appointed by 2 Republican governors. And I wasn't a closet Democrat. I was out in front doing a lot of stuff for the Democratic Party because I believed in the ideology. And I guess I tell a lot of people, Lisa, I was really just a step left of center, probably because my parents taught us that we have an inherent responsibility to take care of our brothers and sisters. So other than that, I mean, I'm fiscally conservative and socially moderate. I think a lot of people are that way. And so I was involved. And Governor Pence asked me when he got elected to be on the board of IEDC. And I think because they needed a couple Democrats, and he probably didn't see me as a crazy Democrat. And so I was on the board for 3 years, I guess. And then he asked me to step aside for 18 months to be the president. And I thought, well, you know, I've never served. It's a way to serve. And what I do is so meaningful. We're helping people get jobs every day, helping businesses succeed, and people like my family. My dad was out of work in 1973 for about 9 months. I just remember it being a tough time for my parents. So, and especially now in the situation we're in with the pandemic, and so we've got a health crisis, an economic crisis, and a civil discourse crisis going on right now. So it's tough times. But I thought giving back, and you know what a great way to do it. 18 months. And then Governor Holcomb asked me to stay on as secretary, and I couldn't tell him no, because the guy is different than anybody I've met. He reminds me a lot of my father, reminds me a lot of my brother John, you too, Bob. And but he's just his moral compass is in the right spot, and he's a genuine, really sincere guy. And what you see inside is what you see outside, and he inspires me. So when he asked me to do it, I thought, you know, I didn't plan on this, but I stayed, and I've been there now for 3.5 years, and I'll stay as long as he wants me to, but, you know, I'm sure someday he'll say, okay, you need to go back and do something else. But it's been an amazing journey, and I think sometimes as an architect, you're responsible for dealing with a lot of people and a lot of disciplines, a lot of different people, and you got to sort of find the sweet spot. And I think I do a lot of that now with our different market sectors and things, and then different countries and things.
So Indiana is doing great right now overall. When you look at the rest of the states and everything that's happening in our country, you guys are doing a heck of a job. I just want to applaud you for that.
Well, you guys are doing a heck of a job.
Well, I
I'm
mean,
not.
we all are together, I think.
Yeah, no, it's remarkable what's happened in the state of Indiana. What's happened, this journey since this organization, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, was formed in 2005 when it replaced the Department of Commerce, the state government, because Governor Daniels at the time felt that the Department of Commerce at the state level was too bureaucratic, too much red tape, too slow. So he started as public-private partnerships. That's what we are. We report to a 15-person private board chaired by the governor. And the purpose of it is to be able to act at the speed of business and also be able to keep a certain confidentiality that you do with businesses that are looking and studying but don't necessarily want to be public yet. And we're able to do that in our public-private partnership. So it's really been remarkable since 2005 and what's happened in the state of Indiana and the business friendliness. And we were ranked #1 in just about everything in the country. And we've had record years in 17, 18, and 19 in terms of jobs and CapEx and in terms of wages. And actually, we're going to set a record this year. My team said, "Are you sure? It's only halfway through the year." I said, "We're going to set a record because how many jobs have people gotten in a pandemic? You know, it's going to be a record in a pandemic," which I'm not mean to be facetious in any way, shape, or form. But we're actually doing quite well, Lisa. And it's interesting. We don't talk a lot about that because we're dealing with life and death issues right now, and people are mostly concerned about that. But I think to relieve some people's anxieties, you know, we've got 2.2 million people that are still working. I'm really sensitive when they say the economy shut down. I don't believe that, and you'll never hear me say it. It did not shut down. Certain businesses shut down, and it's really unfortunate for those businesses, and we're trying to help them. But we still have first responders working. We still have a lot of businesses working in manufacturing, the essential services. And it really hurt us in the hospitality, hotel and restaurant and all those kinds of things. But we still had all these people working, over 2.2 million. And so what we did is we really slowed down. And the governor's back on track plan, which I love, it has a race analogy. And I told him, I said, well, you know, back on track's great, but Governor, we never stopped racing. We've been running laps. We've just been doing so under the yellow flag. And so now as we approach this new normal, what we talk about, it's unlike anything I've experienced, and I think everybody else. I don't think anybody saw this coming. Every day is a new day. You know, I sit in the governor's cabinet meetings. I'm in with him, you know, 3 days a week on how we're dealing with the pandemic. And, you know, everybody's got an opinion. But the buck has to stop somewhere. Yeah. And you know, and he does seek the top medical advice from Dr. Box. If you've seen her on the briefing, she's an amazing woman, as is Dr. Sullivan and Dr. Doss and Dr. Weaver. They're just brilliant people. Dr. Dan, who's from, grew up here. They're all just brilliant people, and everything he does is by the medical advice. So, you know, we've had over 500,000 tests done, and when you hear a test being done, that number going up, you should be happy about that.
Why is that?
It means we're testing.
Oh, okay.
And if we can't test, we can't figure out where it is.
Right.
And so the more tests we do, the better. Now, we don't like the results, we've had 48,000 some odd positive test results. We don't like that. But at least if you know that, then those people can be treated. And we've had tragically 2,600 deaths. Tragic. I was in the governor's office on March 6th, and at 10:23 a.m. we got the call, the first victim. And he wailed up, and because he takes credit for nothing, responsibility for everything, and he takes it personally. For him, you don't see this out front when he's on camera, but the personal responsibility he's taken for this is, I think, overwhelming. And I try to be a voice of positive thinking with him because, but it's happened on his watch, and he takes that very seriously. And I think if people could see behind closed doors how serious he takes it, you'd have a lot of empathy for what he's doing. But it's his job, and he knows what he signed up for. And but as a state, this year alone, we've had over 14,500 job commitments, new job commitments, 2.5 billion in CapEx. Our payroll is up over 1.8 billion right now. Our job wages are in that $27 to $28 range, which is really, really good. Up here in northern Indiana, there's been close to 19 projects in north central, northwest. I was talking about those a little bit today. In northwest Indiana, the average wage is almost $36 a job. So I think the news for people is we've got the best pipeline I've ever seen because we worked really hard at the end of last year to get stuff together for the end of the year, which has benefited us this year. And I think that's a good message to let people know because a lot of these businesses, as you know, they're not coming back. And nobody wants to talk about that, but they're not. And so we have to make sure that of those 400,000+ people that are out of a job right now, that they have something to go back to. And we know a lot of them will, and other businesses are expanding. Workforce has been an issue for the last 4 years, second only as it moved aside into the passenger seat for tariffs and trade barriers internationally. But it's always been an issue for us. So we want to make sure that people, when they come back, we have more opportunities. And these jobs are high-paying jobs, but they're going to take more skills. So the governor and the Department of Workforce Development are working very, very hard to make sure that happens. And I will say the governor, at the end of May, the governor's administration hit over 100,000 jobs, new jobs in the state of Indiana, which is an all-time record. And he did it in 3 years and 5 months.
Talking about. So a lot of, all we hear right now is the gloom and doom, and everybody thinks total opposite of what you're just saying. So I love the fact that we need to spread some good news and shine some light on the positive things that are happening. So I love that you're saying all this. I didn't know that. And I guess let's take a step back too. For people that are maybe watching or don't understand, what does the Secretary of Commerce for the state of Indiana do? And also maybe we can touch on the IEDC, because someone may be watching and this is all great, but they're wondering, how do you know all this? What do you do? What are you responsible for? Because you covered a lot of ground and things that you have to take care of and the governor has to take care of. But what is that big umbrella of the Secretary of Commerce and IEDC? Well,
the job description, I try not to think about this every day. The job description itself is I'm responsible for economic development for the state of Indiana worldwide. So that includes the 92 counties, it includes the other 49 states, and then internationally. And again, our foreign direct investment has been off the charts. We've tripled it in the last 3 years. We have a theory, the governor has a theory, that the people that win the game are the ones that show up to play. And so if I can get face-to-face with somebody anywhere in the world and tell our story, our batting average goes way up. So that's what we do. And IDC is a public-private partnership, which I mentioned a minute ago. We're responsible to provide state incentives. We have a number of incentives. Every single one of them is performance-based, so no one gets a dime until they perform to what they committed to and what the incentive's based on by formula. And then we also coordinate with local governments for their incentives. And we go out and recruit businesses to the state of Indiana. But it's always, Lisa, really, really important that first and foremost are our homegrown businesses in Indiana. Right. That's our first priority. There's never a question about that. All the businesses you mentioned, we talked about this backstage, over 500,000 small businesses. So that is what we look at. And then we go to businesses that are headquartered here, but headquartered outside in the other 49, and then businesses that are here that are headquartered outside of the country. And so we've got 1,037 foreign companies here in the state of Indiana, representing 38 countries, and they employ close to 210,000 people. Most people don't know
amazing.
that. But again, our home businesses, our homegrown businesses are our top priority, and we want to see them grow. But I'm glad to talk about IDC because there are businesses that don't know about us, and we're not one-stop shopping. You can come back as many times as you want if you're expanding, you're growing, you're putting money into your building. And so one of the things I've done as secretary is I've reached out to, we have the information to find every single business in the state of Indiana, and we have them. We have it all down. Somebody says, well, how are we ever going to do that? I said, it's pretty simple. Go to the Department of Revenue. You're going to find out where they all are. And so in the, the tax IRS, so we know where everybody is, and we send out now 2 feelers a year to just say, here we are. Hopefully you know about us. And I've spent an inordinate amount of time in the past 3 months on the phone every day, just talking to businesses. How are you doing? How are you dealing with the virus? How's your family doing? How are your workers doing? Obviously spent time in St. Joe counties. It got hit hard. Cass County, Marion County, Lake County. So it's been a very challenging thing, county to county. Yeah. But that's what we do. We oversee the state incentives. We have a business development department, and we have all the ancillary marketing and all that stuff. But then we have accounts management, who they validate every single thing every single year to make sure that people are not receiving one tax break, one incentive for education, or anything till they perform. So that sometimes is not always recognized. Yeah. Sometimes in the newspaper you'll see it called conditional tax credits, which is the same thing as saying performance-based. But nobody gets a dime unless they perform first. That's different than most states.
Yeah, I think that's great. Don't you?
Yeah, and we also do it incrementally. Our neighbors to the west, they don't do it incrementally. You have to spend all those years and do all the things, then you can take advantage of it. So that helps us be very competitive with our Midwestern states. And then we're number one in the Midwest for, again, I said for just about everything, but number one for best place to do business, number 5 in the country. So, we compete a lot with our neighboring states, and it's always fun to compete with Illinois right now.
Yeah. Tell me about, do we have any really great projects coming up or developments coming up in our area here in the Michiana area? Since we are in South Bend, what can we look forward to that you've heard of or that you're a part of?
More jobs, more CapEx, more payroll, but I can't tell you because that's why the IDC is confidential. I can tell you there's 11 in the pipeline.
A lot of them, okay.
There's 11 in the pipeline, about 1,500 jobs in northwest and central Indiana. I got that brief today. So there's about 1,500 jobs in the pipeline for up here. Close to $100 million in capital investment, and those wages right now are hovering around $20, which is but the national or the state average is $22.50. Wow. So every one of the IDC jobs has always been above the state average, which is something that we're really trying to work at because per capita income is important. Yeah. For people to have a higher quality of life.
So anyone looking for a job right now, or maybe they've lost their job or they've lost a business, there's hope for them because there are jobs coming up.
Absolutely, and we're going to see, Lisa, one of the things I worried about, because having led a firm through 5 downturns, and the first one I was too young and didn't know any better, and it was rough. The 5th I knew, but the last one in 08, 09 was just horrible. It was absolutely took forever. So I was out last Friday, I staffed the governor at a meeting with the president. And all the secretaries were there, Larry Kudrow was there. And we talked about 08, and the economy was so bad, but it's different than today. And I was saying to everyone, I'm not an economist, I think I took an economics class at Notre Dame, but, and supply demand is, but at the end of the day, I said, this is going to be better and different because we didn't lose 2 major industries. We didn't have a failed financial system, and we didn't have a failed housing market. We have a pandemic, which is horrible. But all our institutions are there and ready to go. And I think that when we see the new normal and we see businesses starting to, reopen the non-essential businesses and the essential businesses, up here, I'll tell you, on the phone, I've been calling, I've had over probably 600 calls. And the RV industry is booming right now.
They are.
And their issue right now is social distancing, but they're doing really well. Outdoor equipment is doing well. I even had a credit company from LaPorte County that is doing 1,200 people, and they said we wrote all this off when the COVID hit because no one's going to call a creditor, a credit agency that's collecting money. They've got a greater percentage of return phone calls than they've had pre-COVID. So I think that there's a lot of hope. The automobile industry shut down. but they didn't have to. When Toyota asked if they could reopen on the 4th of May as they planned, I said, well, you never had to close. I mean, they were an essential business. There were 25 essential businesses. But what happened is Mexico did not consider automotive essential, so the supply chain broke down. So a lot of them closed for several weeks, but they're back open. And I was worried about the labor utilization rate because in 08, it really came back slow. Because people weren't incentivized to get back to work. They were making as much money on unemployment as they were working. And I feared this.
You're talking about
well, it's both. But,
yeah.
you know, I feared this. And, of course, it was so early on, and I didn't want to throw another chuck hole in the road when people were dealing with life and death issues. But at my back of my mind, I thought, we got to watch out for this. And it's the case. I mean, when you're getting $600 a week, and say you're getting $300-400 unemployment, that's $1,000. And I can do the math on that. It's $52,000 a year job. It's not a bad job. But that ends in 2 weeks. The $600 goes away after the 3rd week of July. So once that ends, I think we'll see an influx of people that will go back to their jobs. Not all of them can because they're not all there, right? But there's a lot of them that are there. And then there's the sensitivity of, which I'm very sensitive to, and that is consumer confidence. I mean, you know, are people wanting to go back out. Everybody has their own deal. I have 3 sons, and one's a Marine, so he's afraid of nothing. The older one's just older, so he's afraid of nothing. But my middle one doesn't leave the house. I mean, he's a technology guy, and he's medical software. So he doesn't leave the house. He doesn't have to. I think he's been out 3 or 4 times in 3 months. He just really, that just bothers him. So like at IDC, we'll never force anybody to come back until they're comfortable, because it's a personal decision. And it's one of those things where if you look back to the Spanish flu in 1918, you could almost write the same book. I mean, there was an article in the paper not long ago, and the last 3-4 paragraphs could have been written in 2020. They stayed at home, they socially distanced, they wore work gloves, they didn't have the masks and stuff, but they had to make a decision at some point. People had to make their own personal decision. Businesses have to make their decision, and where's that sweet spot? When do you subject yourself to economic downfall versus health? And it's a very sensitive issue. And I think every individual has to decide for their own. And as a society, I think we need to be cognizant of that and understanding of that. Will people abuse it? Sure. I mean, we always have that, but you knew who they were in the first place. But back to your point about the positivity, we live in the greatest country in the world, and I've been to a lot of them, and every time I come back, I just want to kiss the ground. There's no place like the United States. In our worst day, we're better than every other country in the world, in our worst day. And the freedom that people have here, and the prosperity and the opportunities you have. I mean, look, I'm Jimmy Schellinger. I grew up 940 on Beale Street, you know. Yeah. I had a baseball glove and a Stingray bike that was fake. But, you know, I'm sitting here in front of all you, and I have a suit on, but I'm still Jimmy Schellinger from 940 on Beale Street. But opportunity is unbelievable. And you know, it's just that, and we forget that. Because we're always here. But I mean, I think it's one of these things where you got to just take it a day at a time. Maybe I'm just old, but you know, it's even though we're up against this, we're in it together. We'll get through it together. You know, there's been people dealt with worse than this. You know, when the governor that day, when he had that first death, and he wailed up, and I pointed a picture above his fireplace. I said, that's Oliver P. Morton. He was governor during Civil War. He's said to be one of the best governors we've ever had. But he never had to oversee a legislative session because they canceled him during the Civil War. But he sent a lot of Hoosiers to President Lincoln that died in the Civil War. I said, and then you think, Governor, we went, when we were in France, we took a day on Sunday, we were free, and we drove 3 hours to Normandy and back. And I said, there were people sitting around a table, no bigger than this one in the room, Governor, that made the decision that on June 6th of 1944, they were going to charge the beaches of Normandy, knowing tens of thousands of men were going to die, war fighters. I said, you know, these are just the things we have as leaders. And you think about that generation, the great generation that did what they did, and this is sort of our war right now. And we're going to have to stick together, and it's the only way we're going to get through it. And watch each other. I tell people all the time, go check on your neighbors, check on your grandparents, check on your parents. People are alone, and it's something that we're not out of the woods, not even close, and we're not going to be for a while. But at the same point in time, you know, we've overcome a lot of stuff in this country, and we'll overcome this too.
I love what you're saying. People need to hear more of that. I think when you turn on the news or you hear things and it's just everything's so negative. I can't even turn on the news anymore or listen, because that's one of the reasons why I created enLIGHTen. I said, what can I do to bring more light to the world, more joy, more happiness, and bring on people like yourself that can give a positive message to everyone watching. And what you're saying right now is so beautiful and so much needed, that we all need to get along together, work together. I mean, if everybody did that, we wouldn't have what we have right now. I think if you called on your neighbor, checked on them, made sure everybody was okay around you, spread more love, that's what needs to happen. You're doing your job, we're all doing our job. So I appreciate you saying exactly what you just said, because that needs to be heard.
Well, you're exactly right. And I was telling Joe earlier today, my guys put me on a panel discussion in Germany. And I mean, 300 people. John Boehner was sitting right out in front. I was sort of mesmerized by a crowd like I am tonight. And it was, I was with a liberal journalist from Washington, D.C., and she grew up in Europe, hates America. Mm-hmm. And the topic was 1 year of Donald Trump and the economy. And I'm like, what are you guys doing to me? You know, you set me up here in this crowd, and you know, at the end, I just jumped to the end of it. They asked the question, well, if you could change one thing in the next year, what would it be? And she answered first, and she had a long answer, and I was just gazing out at the crowd, and when they finally got back to me, I said, I forgot what the question was. And they said, if you could change one thing in the next year, what would it be? And I said, well, that's a big question. I said, I would get up every day at the firm, and I'd go in and tell the young architects, be excited when you get out of bed in the morning, what you do and what you're able to do and what you're going to do during the day, because you have the honor and privilege of altering the face of God's earth every day. And that's an honor or privilege, but it comes with a tremendous amount of responsibility to do that and be able to do that. And I said, so if you'll accept that as an analogy, I said, you know, today there are a lot of people, and we respect the First Amendment, right, and the right to free speech and self-expression. I said, but I just wish the people that did this for a living and knew the privilege of doing that would do so with a little greater responsibility. And her head started spinning. She went crazy. But my point was, and then the next morning at breakfast, John Boehner said, we had a small breakfast group, maybe 10, 12 people, and he said, I'll go back to what Jim said last night. He said, you know, he goes, back in the day, there were 3 networks and 5 newspapers, and that was it. And nobody was 24 hours. Yeah. And, you know, one of my favorite of all is Lester Holt, right? I teased Laura, I said, turn on the Today nightly news, bad news with Lester Holt. And in the night I said that, and I know it's not his fault, but every story was tough. And then the last one, which is usually the celebratory story, was about Mrs. Glendyne, she's 100. But I mean, it was just like, it was a happy story, but it was the end of a life of a legend. So you're right, it's just a glass half full or half empty, the old analogy. And, you know, I'm on the downward slope, Lisa. You know, I mean, my wife says, don't say that. I said, I am. I'm 60. I'm not going to live to be 120. Then I'm working on the dash, and I'm at the tail end of the dash. I had to start, I'm going to get to finish, and, you know, life's too short to get into these deep, you know, ruts, because, again, if you've been around and seen, it can always be worse. Mm-hmm. I don't care who you are, I don't care what you do, it can always be worse than what it is. Yeah.
I am so glad we have you in this position, because you are the right man for the job, and you care about the people, and you care about this country. So thank you for
very nice of you.
For being who you are and doing what you do. For people that have lost their businesses, what kind of advice would you give to them? What can somebody do to build themselves back up again, or what kind of, you know, tips
I'm glad you brought this up. So the governor asked me to co-chair the Indiana Economic Relief and Recovery Team.
Okay.
That is the team that is responsible for doling out the $2.4 billion from the CARES Act. And so there's a number of ways to take advantage of that. And the thing we talk a lot about is the Paycheck Protection Program. It's an amazing program. And we've had tens of thousands of businesses in Indiana take advantage of this, where you can apply for up to $10 million, 8 weeks of payroll, and you can use 25% for anything, but 75 has to be for payroll. Mm-hmm. And it's a forgivable loan unless you don't do the 75, 30, 25. If you do 60/40, you got to pay back the part that's not 75. Great program. There's another one. We can take a business loan up to $2 million. That is, you have to pay back in very good terms and very low interest. We, as part of the COVID, we put $300 million out to local governments for paycheck or for PPE. So everything we know about this virus and this pandemic is there's 4 things. One is 2 words. If I never heard them again, I'd be happy. Is social distancing. PP, you know, and we bought over 30 million pieces of it, the IDC, to distribute. You name it, masks, gowns, gloves, everything except ventilators and testing and contact tracing. We're funding it, but it's being done through the health department. And so PPE, testing, and contact tracing. Those are it. Those are the 4 things. And so if you really focus on those and respect them, as we have as a state, and we're doing better than most, it's because we're doing that. Some states that didn't take it as serious, or they've come back early, or, you know, young people who are, you know, fearless and invincible, as we all were at a certain time in our life. It's not good. I've always said when they go back to college, how are you going to social distance? So I'm going to go to a fraternity or sorority party, it's say 6 feet away from each other. But I think that through the different programs we have a small business loan program that's open to all small businesses under 50 people. And we put $35 million in that, and you can apply through IDC. It's a very flexible fund. You can use it for almost anything. Rent, you know, anything that you have. Overhead, your wages, your salaries, on and on. And $5 million, that's reserved for XBs. And so we have that program. We have another $10 million program through our Innovation Entrepreneurship Committee that's mainly focused on smart manufacturing and laboratories. So there's a number of resources at the state level that people could take advantage of, especially through the Department of Workforce Development and the programs there. And your own Blair Keel from LaPorte County, Blair Milo, that's a football player at Notre Dame. Blair Milo, former Mayor LaPorte, is the Secretary of Talent Attraction, and she's doing a great job, career and talent and attraction. And so between her role in her division and workforce development, there's lots of opportunities and places to go. But you have to go. Right. You know, people aren't going to be in a helicopter over your house, you know, with a loudspeaker telling you where to go. I mean, you got to take advantage of these things. You have to be proactive, and they're there. It's literally impossible for anybody to outreach to everybody. But we try as best we can, and thank you for this forum, because it can help people be aware of the things that are out there for you from a statewide and a citywide. So, and there's been $50 million of that money advocated to higher education, and there's another $50 million that's dedicated to K-12. So that money's being doled out very responsibly, because as you know, the state was $1 billion under revenue in April, $1 billion in May. We'll find out about June, Thursday, that's tomorrow. And so I'm sure it's bad. And you know, that's money that we use for essential services. So the CARES Act money can be used for essential services. So we've been a little bit conservative on that because we want to make sure if for some reason we have to provide additional funding for our public service entities, the health department, the state police, the National Guard, on, then we can do so with some of that funding and reserve our state funding. Because having a AAA credit rating, which we have in the state of Indiana, having $2.4 billion in cash reserves pre-COVID, I never would have understood how meaningful that is to businesses versus being in debt like our friends to the west. I mean, having a balanced budget, a AAA credit rating, and those cash reserves took us into this thing in great shape. And we dropped 4 points in our employment in the last couple of weeks. We're still at 12 versus 3.2, which we were at. But there's a lot of hope on the horizon, and we just got to stay the course. Yeah, when you are talking to, let's say you go to different countries, or those are all great reasons for people to bring business to Indiana. Why would they not? I mean, look at all the numbers that you just said and everything. So, what is your pitch when you're going to someone to bring in development, and do you encourage them and tell them about all these numbers, or what do you say to people if we want to bring in more business to the state of Indiana, or let's just say our area here? You know, what are we telling people? How do we get more people to bring business here?
Well,
we talked to them about being a magnet for business in Indiana. I mean, we're such a pro-business state. You know, we have low taxes, 3.23 personal income tax, very low. 4.9 corporate. We have zero inventory, zero death tax, inheritance. We have zero on manufacturing equipment, zero in terms of military pensions. We have fixed property taxes, 1, 2, 3%. All these things, a balanced budget, AAA credit rating, $2.4 billion in the bank, the best colleges and universities anywhere in the state, amazing academics. We have the #1 airport in North America in Indianapolis. We have the number, for now, tomorrow, you'll hear it be 8 years. 7 years straight, we have the #2 FedEx in the world. We have 3 international ports. I never would have known that before. I knew we had a lot of water. You know, somebody says, well, you don't have an ocean. Yeah, well, we got Lake Michigan, and it's salt-free and shark-free. And it's a beautiful lake in northern Indiana. And so our 3 international ports, and the list just goes on and on and on about the state and what we have to offer. And that's what businesses are looking for. And this is what's so troubling about this time we're in. Businesses look for stability and predictability. And we've had both for a long, long time. But the thing we're up against now is uncertainty. And that started with trade wars and the barriers and that uncertainty of what's next. And so that's the issue, is that uncertainty. But, you know, we tell the story and tell our rankings. And I always say I have a thing to do with any of them. I didn't write one sentence, and I'm a Democrat appointed by 2 Republican governors, but the proof is in the pudding. 3 great Republican governors have led the state to a great business prosperity. But it's the people of Indiana. It's the workforce. I mean, when we talk about the people in Indiana, the workforce, it's amazing. I mean, there's an attitude here you don't have everywhere. And, you know, I'm biased, I granted. But, you know, you go East Coast, you go West Coast, it isn't like the Midwest. I mean, it's a radically different, dramatically different attitude.
Oh, I lived in Los Angeles in California, and I love being back here.
Yeah,
it's great.
And our workforce is spectacular. State government, IDC, we don't create one job. Never. I mean, we just help businesses. It's the businesses in the private sector that are out there taking risks, have a vision, and they're doing it. And we just try to make sure the sandbox works for them to play in. And it's the highest honor in my life, being able to do what I'm doing for everybody in the state of Indiana.
Well, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Let's, and TJ, I think we have a website. I know we have something for the IEDC, just where people can get information and get some help and different things. If, you know, all of the programs that you talked about, if you want to put up that website too, people can go to there and learn a little bit more and research a little bit more of everything that's available to them. Because there is a lot available to everyone right now in the state of Indiana. And
there is. And
programs that you're working
on. Our website includes it all. I've been to it once. It's I'm not very technologically oriented.
Same. That's
but no, it's on all
here,
of our stuff,
you.
and it gets rave reviews. In fact, the Undersecretary for the Department of Commerce that works for Wilbur Ross, he uses our website as an example of states. He tells people, go to Indiana's website, and I had nothing to do with that either. I just it was all built before I got there. But it's I'll tell you guys should be really proud of your state. It's, you know, I've gotten to look behind the curtain. You know, I've been to Oz, and it's pretty remarkable. And you know, you're going to hear pundits and people are negative about it all the time, but when you get to see what this state is about, and you get to sit in one of those cabinet meetings with the top talent that are all step aside from their private sector jobs to do this. They have nothing to gain from it except to serve. And you see that briefing the governors have, and what you don't see is the 25 people on the task force that were wearing our masks behind the camera. And we get asked every once in a while to step out, but it's thing beauty, and it's something to be extremely proud of. And our assets and the people of this state are unbelievable, unparalleled. And it's just, I get goosebumps when I talk about it, because you have to see it to believe it. And when you see people that are at the state working with the governor, and you see the governor, it's remarkable, the care. I mean, it's all about care, and it's all about concern. And this is obviously a very, very intense time for us because of that. Yeah. A lot of sleepless nights on the part of a lot of people, especially the governor.
Yeah, we are in good hands in Indiana. I am proud to be a Hoosier. Why don't we bring some panelists up here, and we'll have a little chat with them. I don't know if they are in the audience or if they're backstage. Cue the panelists, and while they are coming on, since this is live, usually, you know, when you're doing shows, they cut to a commercial. So this is our commercial. It's just us, and we've got the panelists coming out, and I'll introduce who they are, and we'll just have a quick little chat with them, and maybe you can help them and give some advice. And here they come.
I can try. Can I tell you something that little inside baseball thing? Bobby doesn't believe this, but the first time I ever wore an orange tie is because I saw Friedman wearing one time.
Oh, you guys do match.
And I thought, man, does that look good with gray hair? And,
It's slicer orange, isn't
there
it?
you go.
Okay.
It's like looking in a
Good to
mirror.
see you, Shaw.
Yeah, good to see you.
Great. So I'm going to introduce our panel here. We have got BJ Magley, and she is the co-founder of Heroes Camp.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, so you have not met yet. Now, I know BJ because she's like my mom, and my mom's here too. So I've got
She
two
got
moms.
she has two moms.
I got
That's,
two
that's
moms.
not bad.
I won't say which one I like better. No.
No.
But this is BJ Magley from Heroes Camp. She's the co-founder. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We've got Dr. Jesse Hsieh, and he is with, Michiana VIP, MD, and you've got a long list of accolades that I will let you, because I'll get them all wrong. And then we've got Friedman with Friedman and Associates, also sponsor. Thank you very much. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of have a little discussion. I would love to know how COVID and what's going on is affecting each one of your businesses right now. And then if you got any questions for Jim or you've got any advice for them, maybe we can just kind of have that discussion. Let's start with BJ. We'll just kind of go down.
Ladies go first.
Ladies go first, and she is a lady. So tell us just a little bit about Heroes Camp and what you do.
Well, Heroes Camp is a 501(c) outreach to the St. Joe County and Michigan area. We deal with fatherless young boys, and we've been doing it for over 30 years. We're in our 31st years. We believe that when fathers are not in the home, you can see what we've got going on nationwide, because fathers sort of identifies that young youth, who you are and what your real expectations are. So that has been an ongoing issue throughout the whole world. It's not just in the United States. It's that the fathers are no longer in the home, so they don't have direction of who they are. They don't have their identity and their purpose. So what my husband, Pat Magley, is a native of South Bend, St. Joe County, graduated from LaSalle High School. I met him in college in Georgia. I'm a Georgia peach, a farm girl, and just love people. So what we do at Heroes Camp, we take that young man and we tell them, you're worth something. You just don't know your identity, but God will show you. We're faith-based, what your identity is. So we have an incredible state-of-the-art $1 million facility. It's our home right now behind the South Bend Racquet Club on Hickory Road. All of our services are free. We help that single mother. COVID, no problem with us. We're just one of those essential businesses that Governor Holcomb said you could be open, because we were delivering food, services, counseling, fun, trying to encourage that single mother that really was no longer working, maybe not even able to get unemployment, kids out of school, what to do, you know. And then we have what we have right now, craziness in the entire world. So we are frontline people. We care about these young boys because we go what the Word of God says in James. God cares about the widows, the orphans, and the strangers. And so we fall right in there, and He has always been right there with us. We are completely live on donations. People care about this community. My husband's born and raised in here. For me to leave the South to come here, I didn't really, you know, South, North, cold, all this, people cold, the weather's cold. But I found people have been very warm and receiving of us and care about the community. So they have upheld us. Sometimes we can have anywhere between 400 or 500 on our list, and the services are free. So every day they come in, they get a Bible study, they get to play basketball, they hear the Word of God, they get instructions. We father. What a father does, we buy clothes, shoes. They don't have very much, but God says He cares about them. And so for that, you know, I'm not ashamed of what we do. I will ask anybody, any corporation, do any kind of grant request, hey, this is where you live, this is where you do business. Let's all prosper. Once you don't take everything and buy it for yourself. Leave a little something in the field so that the fatherless and the stranger can have a life. So we've given our whole life to it. I have one daughter, I have 3 grandkids, an incredible son-in-law that's going to take the ministry of Heroes Camp to the next dimension when we are. I'm 65. I know I don't look it, but you know what I'm saying.
She looks great.
So I'm always looking for I'm looking for real people in South Bend, in St. Joe, and even we have supporters all over the world, California, and we serve a decent meal because St. Joe County has about 45% live in poverty of hunger. And that's a study that United Way, that's where I came from. I worked for years for United Way of St. Joseph County. So people are hungry. People don't have a balanced meal. So yeah, you're going to get in trouble in school when you go to school hungry. I rode the bus 16 miles one way on a farm out of Georgia, and we had a full breakfast before we went to school. I'm incredible. My dad had 7 daughters. We all graduated from college except one that's Down syndrome. He knew something. He knew the value of food, real food. He knew that he was a farmer. He worked for the state of Georgia agriculture. He raised hogs, cows, beef. That's lost, you know. So that's what we try to bring to the table at Heroes Camp. We try to identify them. You are worth something. You're not to be locked up. You're not to be going to jail. You're supposed to find what you're supposed to do in this world, and we want to help you. Nice. We build champions on and off the court.
They do.
Yes,
I
inspiration.
fell in love with Heroes Camp. I volunteered and I said, oh,
Yes.
I'm going to do a video for them. I haven't left their side. They're like family. You come to this place and go to heroescamp.com. I know we
Please.
have that. You can learn more about it. So many people, you've been 30 years. We just had a 30-year celebration.
Yes.
And I never knew about it until a few years ago. But when you walk in the doors, you just know that there's something special. They play basketball, and it's a safe place for the kids to go after school. But they have a Bible study, and the food. She cooks all the meals with Gwen, and they have a whole staff, and they have fitness equipment. I mean, it is just the most incredible place, and it touches you. And
It really does. You have to come for a tour. I always tell people, don't just write me a check and say, get out of my face, or hey, let's give her $500, let's finish. Won't you come and see what we're doing, how we're impacting and changing lives?
It's beautiful.
It really is. It makes a difference.
For an organization like Heroes Camp, is there anything available to them, because they live completely on donations? I mean, that they pay their staff from it, their food that they buy. Are there things that we don't know about? I mean, they can write grants, or they could try and get grants. I know it's just word of mouth, but is there anything assistance-wise?
From a statewide, from any economic development, we're just, mostly our incentives are all about business, but we certainly have an incredible connection with corporate Indiana.
Right.
God bless you for what you're doing.
Thank
I mean,
you.
It's you talk about meaningful work. That's incredible. And actually, there's a Flash Gordon. I don't know if you recognize that name.
Flash Gordon,
He
yeah.
played at Notre Dame back on the 1988 National Championship. He runs Wernley Academy out in Richmond. Very similar situation, different than yours, but they take troubled young men and women, and they really do an amazing job like you're doing. So, I mean, yeah, we could certainly, I mean, there's a lot of programs out there at the state level, not in the IDC, but at the state level that, I mean, this is so important. I mean, when you think about kids that, you know, there was an organization I was involved with, and I was a benefactor for a long time, was backpacks. For kids. And, you know, when you think about the fact that a lot of kids at school go home and they don't eat all weekend, and to fill these backpacks with food, that way they could eat all weekend so they could come back on Monday and be nourished. And until you've seen it, you won't believe it.
No, your life is never
Yeah.
never the same
It's
after
not
that.
out there, but it's big time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, go to heroescamp.com. Put that up there, TJ, so everybody can go visit and learn more
TJ.
and donate. Dr. Jesse Hsieh.
Well, it's very humbling to follow you. Because that's
But what
extremely
you're
inspiring.
doing is equally important,
Yes.
because you're taking care of people and their health. So tell us a little bit about your background.
I'll just talk a little bit about the background. I really didn't have any prepared comments because I'm here more or less as a resource, and that's because COVID affects everything now in business. So the interrelationship of COVID and what it's doing to us economically really has to do with some expertise and thoughts from the health sector. And I was backstage with my good friend Hsieh Friedman. He's got a lot to say. He's got papers in his hands.
We saved the best for last.
Yeah.
So,
No.
so I'll just introduce myself and then have Hsieh speak. But before I do that, your husband is here. And he's a
Yes.
very big part of this. So
Yes,
why
he's
don't
a-
we just recognize him somewhere?
Where's
Well,
Pat?
he's probably
He's
struggling with his knees a little bit, but he's probably down in the green room.
Oh,
He's
okay.
We
born
should-
and raised in South Bend.
We should get him up here just to...
He's an athlete.
Oh, you just watch him play basketball.
Yeah, and his brother was Mr. Basketball. His younger brother was Mr. Basketball for the state of Indiana, I think in 1978. I don't know, this basketball. All this kind of stuff. He graduated from LaSalle. He's a LaSalle line, you know, those kinds of things. Somebody from the LaSalle lines? Okay. So anyway, he's born and raised here. He's what you call a local boy.
Yeah, I remember.
So, but what I will do is, so my enLIGHTen programs, I'm going to continue to do these, and I already said I'm going to have Pat and BJ come together, and we'll just do one on Heroes Camp. And you have
He's the driving force behind it. I'm the money person and the cook, you know, that kind of thing. I love to cook. I love these young boys like my own, you know, I really do. And they have bloomed. So many of them have gotten scholarships to go on to colleges, making some tremendous impact growing up, fathering their own children when they were never fathered, because they have to have an example. This just doesn't come in the atmosphere.
That's what I'm saying.
You got to show someone how to take care of themselves and how to take care of their young baby and support them. And when it's shown, normally people will follow suit if they're shown the most positive thing. So we have made tremendous, it's had to be over 100,000 young boys since 31 years ago have come through our doors. But we've got a resting place right now in the Mishawaka. One side is Mishawaka, one side is South Bend, right behind the South Bend Racquet Club. So we encompass this whole arena. But I want to hear from what's going on in LaPorte.
Well, first, the tie is in deference.
We'll get back to you because you have not said enough yet. So don't think that you're out of this. So
the tie is in deference to Jim's brother Bob, okay? Because I'm a LaPorte High School class of '77. Bob took the Slicers to a state championship game back in 2014. We're state runner-ups. So a lot of pride, Slicer pride in the Schellinger family. I was really asked by Lisa to help give the local government perspective on the COVID piece. I'm county attorney in LaPorte County. Also here to recognize the kind of partnership that our county has with Jim's agency and with Jim. This county, this region is extraordinarily fortunate to have Jim Schellinger down as Secretary of Commerce.
Agreed.
We really are. He's brought a perspective from northern Indiana that's awfully important. One of the things that we're doing, and I'm working with LaPorte Mayor Tom Dermody on a joint project, a bipartisan project, is a new project called Northern Indiana Advocates. The 9 northern Indiana counties pushing for additional state resources, attention to issues up here, board and commission appointments. And again, we've got the beauty of it being bipartisan. That's exactly how Jim Schellinger has run the IEDC. One of the things I wanted to talk about was the success that Jim brought home in terms of a county has been working for years to try to bring jobs to the Kingsbury Industrial Park. It is a large industrial park south of LaPorte, about 8 miles south. We've got 2 major freight rail lines that run adjacent to Kingsbury Industrial Park, both the CN on the north, the CSX in the south. We've never been able to get the connection and get the connectivity, which is going to help that industrial park break out both with jobs and new opportunity. Thanks to Jim Schellinger and the IEDC, we're getting it. $1 million grant that Jim brought home, and he's done it all across the region. And so we are really blessed to have someone from our region down in Indianapolis, down at the center of power, saying, look, I got to remember my county's up north, and you've been just as good to the folks in the south and the central area, but Northern Indiana Advocates thanks you as well. We've got a great group. In fact, Mike Daigle, who runs your airport here, is one of our board members on Northern Indiana Advocates. It's a great group from across the 9 counties that are pushing through Northern Indiana Advocates, but I really wanted to pay attention and bring special notice to the work that Jim has done, even during the pandemic. It's not as if they stopped. They're out there trying to recruit new jobs and new opportunity for the state of Indiana, and they've done it all the way through. We're fortunate as well, I should note, Jim is on that 7-member committee that the governor appointed that's also going to make allocation of CARES Act funding, which means that counties up here, just like counties down south in the central region, have a real shot at getting their reimbursement because, as the governor noted, there's about $2.4 billion. We've got to dole that out to various cities and towns and counties throughout the state, and Jim is square working on that, and so I wanted to pay special tribute to that as well.
I am glad you said that. And how do you feel about that? Is your head blown up?
Well, coming from Hsieh, it's pretty amazing. Thank you, Hsieh. No, and Hsieh's being being very humble, he was just elected to the Democratic National Committee. It's a big, big deal.
It must be
And
an
we're-
orange tie. I'm going to
That's
start wearing
right.
an orange tie.
We're fortunate to have him in that role, and that's not an easy role to get elected to, so he'll do great things there.
Thank you, Jim.
But no, it's, I think what Shaw's talking about in terms of, I mentioned the CARES Act. I mean, you know, we made $300 million available for reimbursement of PPE because it's so important, and there's more. I mean, we actually, in the interest of full disclosure, a lot of communities, counties, and municipalities haven't taken advantage of it the way we'd like them to, because it's there. It's your money. It's not our money. And Shaw, you're right. It was 2.4 billion. There was 200 million that was in addition to that. That Marion County, they applied by themselves, so they did their own thing. But really, it's 2.6 billion for the state of Indiana. But it's a great program, and it's to help people with exactly what Shaw's talking about.
Yeah, no, thank you.
It is critical, and I will tell you this, because Jim, I mean, we may be both partisans, we'll put on our jerseys during the election, but once the election's over, we work with the other side to get things done. I'm very proud in our county, we're a model of bipartisan cooperation. I've got a bipartisan county commission, 2 Democrats, 1 Republican. Things are working as smoothly as they've ever worked in our county. The same thing with the county council. Part of it is that ability to reach across the aisle to get things done. It's absolutely vital we be able to talk to each other. I mean, Jim has preached that his entire career, and he believes in it, civility in the public square. And so that's why we are so fortunate, whether it's South Bend, our region, my county, to have someone like Jim Schellinger down there in the seat of power, because he's a big believer in it. It's the only way we're going to get things done. And we're very proud in LaPorte County of having worked across the aisle. And you certainly have to, as a Democrat working down in Indianapolis, you got to work with a Republican supermajority in the House and the Senate. We've done that, and worked with the governor's office and IEDC as well to try to do good things for our county and for our region. And so, but you talk about humility. This guy is doing some great work out there. He's globetrotting to try to bring jobs home for Indiana and for Northern Indiana, and we are very blessed to have you, Jim. We really are.
That, and great for you, but I love what
Could
you
you
were
tell
saying.
my wife this?
I will. I'll tell Laura. I'm going to call her. Yes.
Is she watching? I hope so. But what you said, that you can get along, we can all get along. Both sides
Yes,
can
you
come
have to.
together, and it's proven right here. And this, again, what I want to do, I want to bring more positive things to the world, more light to the world. And I love the fact that this was brought up, because Democrats and Republicans can get along, and we can get things accomplished much better, quicker, more efficient that way, and it's better for everyone else too. So thank you for bringing up that point. You have a lot of, did you cover everything on there?
Yeah, I did. And in fact, I brought copies for folks here too
See,
on
everyone's
Northern
got one
Indiana
every-
Advocates. So we've got some, we've got some material afterward that we wanted to provide guests here. Along with the, we had a great press release when we announced that grant, so I had copies of that as well for
Perfect.
folks here.
Do you have a website you want to share with people?
Our LaPorte County website, we're very proud of that. We've updated our website, LaPorte County, just go to LaPorte County. It's a state-of-the-art county government website.
Okay.
You can imagine how critical it's been for us during the COVID crisis to be able to have public health officials be able to communicate good, timely information. In fact, we just reopened county government on Monday. Dr. Cora, who, as you know, is one of our county commissioners. It's been great having, Jesse and I were talking about this behind stage, having a physician as a member of the county commission, because it helped with the 4 pillars of reopening in terms of having, you know, our PPE, which we've gotten great help from the state on, but be able to have the temperature checks, as they've done here at the theater, to be able to check as patrons come in, to do the retrofitting in terms of the plastic in all the offices, and also to be able to do the social distancing. You can imagine the effort that's made. I know the same thing in state government, but just to be able to get county government offices to reopen safely, protect both our employees and patrons, was a monumental effort. And it was very helpful having Dr. Cora and his colleagues on the commission kind of supervising that. But we've reopened for business as of Monday, which we're very proud of.
great.
Congratulations. That's
Very
huge.
well said, and I love, this is a perfect, you're not off the hook, you're next.
That's right.
So, well, let's, thank you for anything else you want to share?
No, that's it.
Perfect. Let's get back to, let's talk about, you know, some of the points that we just brought up. And in being a physician in this current time, tell us, one, how that is, and what do you see, and maybe help us, what can we do to keep ourselves safe? I mean, obviously we know, everybody says, you know, wash your hands. There's probably a way to wash your hands, other things that you can give us. So a lot of things to cover, but just maybe we'll start with some of the points that Hsieh brought up.
Well, the biggest point he made was that he's a Democrat and I'm a Republican.
Yeah, well, but look,
And
you guys
he's
are
on the
getting along.
DNC, and we still had great conversation. And what we were talking about back there is that kind of conversation doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
We're talking about the ACA,
Yeah.
the Obamacare, and what's going on right now. And I think that's the kind of conversation that needs to happen. So it's a great example of what your show is trying to bring back, that we can actually, talked about Trump. And we're still friends. So.
But that's what it's all about, a
Yeah.
healthy conversation where you respect the opinions of one another. You may not agree, but at least have enough respect with each other to say, okay, I understand, but here's my side. And I think
Yeah.
that's beautiful, that's powerful.
Yeah, so introducing myself, I've been in practice about 32 years, family medicine, was in Southland Clinic for about 30 of those years, and was president of the clinic for 10. And then when I left the clinic, become a solo practitioner back to what I used to do, I became chairman of the board for Beacon Health System. So Beacon Health System is now going to be 5 hospitals. We have a joint venture going on in LaPorte with Franciscan. That'll be our 5th hospital. We have almost 8,000 employees, 400 physicians in our organization, and I also teach at Notre Dame in the MBA as well as the EMBA program and the IU School of Medicine. So
That's quite a resume.
Yeah, that's why you said it was a mouthful.
I said, okay, how would you like me, what can I say about you? And so he sent me this long list, and I thought, there's no way I could cover all that or say,
But the most important thing I do is I play in this group called Jesse's Girl.
I was just going to say, on top of everything that you do,
Yes.
he also is in a band. He's been in several bands,
Yes.
and he's a musician, a singer, a doctor. Jill, his wife, is a good friend of mine. He has incredible children. I mean, it's Renaissance man right here.
So I think it's a whole separate show about COVID and the pandemic and response because it just covers such a broad area. But I think the most pertinent thing I can talk about tonight is what we try to do in terms of the economy, and it's a separate issue aside from my other hats that I wore. And so I have a private practice now that I went from a typical practice to what's called direct primary care practice. Some people call it concierge practice, but it's really a no insurance, pay me up front. I don't bill insurance, and then I have patients. And I'm turning 60. It's time for me to do that. Otherwise, it was retiring from all that paperwork. And within that group are a lot of industry leaders. And so what happened was we worked with the governor's office. And I was holding a conference call every Wednesday morning back in March. We didn't know what to believe. Every time you turn on the radio, TV, newspaper, somebody in government was saying this, somebody else was saying that, and then they conflicted with each other in World Health, CDC. So if you remember back in March, nobody knew what the truth was, what was going on. We heard different things. So we started conference calling, and these people were saying, should I shut my business down? What's going to happen? We had a conference call of CEOs of companies ranging from, the smallest was 500 up to 10,000. And these were my patients who were in this sort of, we started to call it the CEO sort of group therapy for CEOs. Mm-hmm. And because they had tremendous responsibility to their workers and trying to figure out what do we do. And so the conference call was, I spent an hour or two every day just trying to keep up, because it's being chair at Beacon and also at Notre Dame, having conversations with Notre Dame, with Shannon Cullinan about how do you reopen the university, what's your capacity, really had to keep up on all that kind of stuff. And what we ended up with through that so-called group therapy session, as that time came to talk to the governor's office, this group of 20, which included some names that people are familiar with, Jason Lippert, Brad Toothaker, in that group, we shared information called a playbook. You at Beacon, how do you make sure your 7,600 plus employees are safe? You at Lippert, how do you make sure they're safe? What happens when someone gets COVID? Do you shut it down for a week? Do you clean things out? What do you do? So we took best practices from all these companies and broke down all that competitive barriers. We had Thor sitting side by side with Lippert, for example, and said, and that was through this group therapy CEOs. They never would have connected otherwise. We also had the CEO for Haciendas, which is a restaurant, and we had Chris Murphy, the CEO for First Source. These were all people from different cross-sections that we brought together that couldn't have come together other than that particular way. And we got 220 people, companies, to sign onto a document that we sent to the governor. And we said, we have gotten together, these 220 companies, and agreed upon how we would all standardize how we're going to reopen and get the economy going again and protect our workers. And he sent back a text, and I still got it. It says, I wish I could clone you guys.
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
So I was very proud of that effort, and that besides this format, probably no one really knows about it because we don't really need to go out and talk about it too much. But that's an example of when people work together, no matter what. And that goes back to your mission of this program, which is enLIGHTen.
And thank you for bringing that all the way back around. This is perfect. I have a panel of pros here, and you're a pro. This has been an enlightening conversation. But again, what I wanted to do was, create a show where it brings positivity to the world and talking about topics like this. And each one of you, I want back like as a special guest, and we'll continue the conversations as we go. But I think it's important, especially now, which brings me to enLIGHTen stands for everyone needs light, especially now. And that is exactly what this is. And I can't thank you all enough for being here. I'll definitely post, this video again so people can see and share it and share all of the websites and the information because I think people really need to hear what everyone had to say today. And each one of you brought so much to the table. Thank you for what you're doing. I mean, my gosh. As a close, is there any kind of advice that, if you want to give anyone on our panel here, or to the people watching?
No,
just what can you say?
what you're seeing in these three great Americans is something that I see all over. I was mentioning this before you guys came out, all over the state. It's just the people of Indiana are just spectacular. And Dr. Jesse, I will tell you, I've seen a lot of plans, and I can almost say, without fear of contradiction, the businesses in Indiana are going far above the CDC requirements. I mean, way above.
Yes.
Everyone we've seen has really done their due diligence, and it's something to be proud of. So thank you for what you've done, and you're doing the work of God. I talk about this with our organization when we're doing things for jobs, and we're doing the work of God. And Hsieh's done this too. I mean, as a Democratic person in the state, I mean, he's been a brilliant addition to the Democratic team. If more people would follow his suit, we'd be in a different position probably right now. but it's pretty amazing about the work that Hsieh does in the county, LaPorte County, and across the entire northern part of the state, as Hsieh says. It's a very special place. And then you go south, and that's a very special place. And you go east to west, north, south, up and down. It's a great state. And it's just the people of Indiana are just amazing people. And there never ceases to amaze me how people would step up. You ask them, they'll step up. I mean, it's just, that's what they're about.
They do.
It's caring about others. And I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate all of you, and thank you for having me here tonight. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, this has been amazing. Thank you to everybody in the audience. Thank you to everyone at home watching. I do want to also thank again the South Bend Civic Theater. They have provided this beautiful theater, which now you know where it is.
I know.
Go to sbct.org if you want to learn more about the shows that they have coming up, or if you'd like to donate to them online, that would be great. Heroescamp.com. Another great place to donate. Any other websites you want to throw out there? We're giving shout outs right now and thank yous. Going once, going twice.
Sounds good.
We got the IEDC, we put that on there. And then also to my sponsors, I could not have done this without you. And you are supporting a small business, so thank you for that. And that is Parkwood Auto Spa. That is Burton's Dry Cleaning and Laundry. And we've got Friedman and Associates. We've got CJ's Pub. We've got Heroes Camp, Michiana VIP MD. When are you playing next? If you guys want to hear some music and you're in the neighborhood.
Can I put a plug in?
Go, put a plug in.
Well, Jesse's Girl is spelled G-U-R-L because we didn't learn how to spell in med school. And it's on Facebook, and we play almost every week, and we make sure that when we play that it's safe to play, which is outdoors, and we'll be at Ruth Chris next Thursday. And there's a place in town called Villa McCree following that.
So if you're
just
in
post
town
it and
and
we'll
you're on Facebook, they can find
Well,
you.
it's on Facebook. That's
Yeah.
the only thing I know how to advertise.
I think we're all in the same boat here. And then speaking of music, we're going to play some music on the way out, and it is from Adrenalize and Michael Joe, and featuring Michael Joe. He's the singer. and it's called Wide Awake. But before we close, I just want to thank everybody once again. To our panel, we've got Hsieh, Friedman and Associates. We've got Dr. Jesse Hsieh with Michiana VIP MD, and we've got BJ Magley and Pat Magley, who we'll bring on again.
Yes. Check us out on the website. If this is touching your heart with what you see going on beyond the pandemic, beyond the incredible issues that we're going to have to address about race in this whole country, we are doing it on the front lines. So go online, hit the donate button. You're keeping us right on the front lines where we belong, because God has got our back, and he's in the front of us.
Amen to
Thank
that.
you.
Heroescamp.com. And finally, Jim Schellinger, Secretary of Commerce for the state of Indiana. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here and sharing everything that you did, and taking time out to come all the way from Indianapolis to be here with us today.
Coming home.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the show. You can play the music.